After Jesus was born in Bethlehem in Judea during the time of King Herod, Magi from the east came to Jerusalem and asked, "Where is the one who has been born King of the Jews? We saw his star when it rose and have come to worship him." When King Herod heard this, he was disturbed, and all of Jerusalem with him. When he had called together all the people's chief priests and teachers of the law, he asked them where the Messiah was to be born. "In Bethlehem in Judea," they replied, "for this is what the prophet has written. But you, Bethlehem, in the land of Judah, are by no means least among the rulers of Judah, for out of you will come a ruler who will shepherd my people Israel." Then Herod called the Magi secretly and found out from them the exact time the star had appeared. He sent them to Bethlehem and said, "Go and search carefully for the child. As soon as you find him, report to me, so that I too may go and worship him." After they had heard the king, they went on their way, and the star they had seen when it rose went ahead of them until it stopped over the place where the child was. When they saw the star, they were overjoyed. On coming to the house, they saw the child with his mother Mary, and they bowed down and worshipped him. Then they opened their treasures and presented him with gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh. And having been warned in a dream not to go back to Herod, they returned to their country by another route.
So as you hear that story about these magi, we know them as wise men who had come, they knew that Jesus had been born and they were coming to give gifts to him and to worship him. Imagine what it was like for them to actually know where they could literally find Jesus and literally give gifts to him. I just try to get your head around the idea that this is the King of the Jews. You and I know the King of Kings, the Lord of Lords, the God of the universe in human flesh, that they had the privilege and blessing of knowing exactly where he was, being able to literally come into his presence, give gifts straight to him. Imagine that experience of God in that moment. Now, that's what I really want to get to is what would it have been like to experience God on that level? What brought them there? I just want you to think about how far they were willing to go to do that. A minimum of 400 miles. Some would say 700 miles to 1,000 miles. Some say even more than 1,000. But at the very least, it was 400 miles that they had traveled. How far they went because they knew, wait a minute, the King of the Jews has been born and we're going to worship him. We were willing to go a very long distance. So let's just take the middle there, 700 miles that they were willing to go. And then they were willing to devote a lot of time to this. That would have been, if it was just 400 miles, it would have been somewhere between 2 weeks and 3 weeks if they were on camel. It would have been a month if they were walking. And so by the time you're looking at 700 miles, you're looking at a minimum of a month. You're looking at long period of time that they were traveling. So they went a long way. They spent a lot of time to get there. Why? Because if we can literally give a gift to the King of Kings, to the Lord of Lords, if we can give a gift to him, it's worth traveling as far as you need to travel. It's worth taking as much time as you need to take. And then what did they bring? They brought the gold and the frankincense and the myrrh. And that meant, now first of all, it's referred to as treasures there, as you heard Casey read that they were giving the best, right? So gold, the international symbol of wealth, frankincense, incense that would be burned to welcome a king or to worship a god, right? So this beautiful and powerful expression of those gifts, and the myrrh, that ointment that you know and I know was actually likely a part of the mix that was used when, not that literal piece they gave, but that myrrh would likely have been used in preparing Jesus for burial. Well, those guys probably didn't know that, but they were giving the best of what they had to honor him. All right, so that being the case, they did it, and the way that they did it, again, if you were thinking, wait, this is God, I get to be in the presence of the Son of the living God and give directly to him, I want to ask, how you would do that, right? It's not just how far they went and how much time they took and what they gave, but it's how they gave it. When they saw the star and they realized where Jesus was, they had been in Jerusalem, and when they were told it's in Bethlehem, they're only 6 miles away. Imagine that. You've traveled probably 700 miles, at least 400, and now you're in Jerusalem and you realize it's only 6 miles away and you're headed toward Bethlehem. You're in Jerusalem, headed toward Bethlehem, only 6 miles to go, and then you see the star, that star ultimately is over the very place where Jesus was. It says that they were overjoyed. They were just like, oh my goodness, we get to do this. And then finally, they fell down. They bowed down and worshiped Him when they saw Him. So they gave it with great joy. They gave it with great honor and reverence and worship toward Him. And that experience that they must have had in that house where Jesus was, and remember, this is probably, at least a year later, probably between a year and 18 months later, that this was happening, and Jesus was kind of a toddler at that time. And just imagine what it was like for them to walk away and what their conversation was like on their way back, going like, can you believe it? What that was like. Now for you, you're thinking, I could never have that experience. But I just want to ask you a question. If you could, how far would you go? Like right now, if God were to say to you, look, I'm going to let you know exactly how you can get to my son Jesus and give a gift directly to Him, how far would you go? Would you do that 400 or 700, 1,000 miles? How much time would you take? They spent probably a month or longer, and that's just traveling in one direction. So this is a 2-month commitment or so that they're making. How much time would you devote to getting to Jesus to be able to give something directly to Him? And then what would you give? Like they were given the best of what they had, What would you give if you had the chance to do that? Like how much and what would you give in order to give it straight to Him if you knew you could give it straight to Him? And then how would you give it, right? How much joy would there be in there? How much passion? How much reverence would there be in your giving that to Him? And as you think about those questions, I want to tell you right now that you literally know beyond a shadow of a doubt today that God can tell you, is going to tell you, is telling you right now how you can give a gift directly to Jesus just as much as those Magi did. And He Himself said it. Jesus did. Matthew chapter 25, verses 31 through 46. That's where you're going to do your Discovery Bible study today. Matthew 25, 31 through 46. Jesus says this, when the Son of Man comes in His glory and all His angels with Him, He will sit on His throne in heavenly glory. All the nations will be gathered before Him, and He'll separate the people one from another as a shepherd separates the sheep from the goats. And then He'll say, He'll put the sheep on His left, the goats on His left and the sheep on His right. And then He'll say to those on His right, come you who are blessed by my Father. Take your inheritance prepared for you since the creation of the world. For I was hungry and you gave me something to eat. I was thirsty and you gave me something to drink. I was a stranger and you invited me in. I needed clothes and you clothed me. I was sick and you looked after me. I was in prison and you came to visit me. And then the righteous, they're going to reply and say, but Lord, when did we see you hungry and feed you, or thirsty and give you something to drink? When did we see you a stranger and invite you in, or needing clothes and clothe you? When did we see you sick or in prison and go to help you? And He said, the King will reply, truly I tell you, whatever you did for one of the least of these brothers and sisters of mine, you did for me. I just want you to get this reality. He's saying, literally, if you do it for them, you are doing it for Him. You can directly impact your Lord and your Savior, the Son of the living God. You can encounter Him and impact that relationship between you and Him and you and others just as profoundly and powerfully as the Magi did. I want you to hear that. Just as powerfully and profoundly as they did. Now, if you believed, if for a second you were to think, really, I could literally encounter the Son of the living God, I could give directly to Him. If what Jesus says is true, that if I do it for them, I'm doing it for Him, then how far would you be willing to go? How much time would you be willing to spend? What would you give and how would you give it if that was you? There are so many stories I can tell, but I asked permission of Sarah to share this. Sarah and Matt, and you know, Sarah's our director over our children and family ministries, but they were talking about the Christmas where they all decided that they were going to go to the Dominican Republic. And the Dominican Republic, and I think they crossed over into Haiti as well, but they were going to go there because they believed that during Christmas they could give something that would impact Jesus. And so they took a significant amount of time, traveled a great distance to get there. They committed the week after Christmas to go down there. They gave the best of what they had. Instead of getting gifts for each other, they took their resources and made it so that they could be there. And then they gave gifts. They gave gifts, the best of what they could give. And just like the giving of the myrrh, some of the things they didn't even realize how significant and how important it would be. Like, I don't know if the kings might have thought, well, the myrrh might have been kind of like lower on the pole of the other things. You know, gold, frankincense might have been as valuable as gold, and they might not have understood the significance of the myrrh, but they gave what it was that they felt in their hearts was right to give. Well, Matt and Sarah and the children were there, and when they went into a village and they actually were just giving bread. As they were giving bread, they said they were blown away by the depth of gratitude in this village for the people who were receiving that bread and the love and the power of that experience. And I asked Sarah this question. I said, Sarah, I have this thought, and I don't want to make an overstatement. And I said, I have this thought that when we go as far as we need to go, we take as much time as we need to take, we give as the very best of what we've got, and we do it with joy and reverence and love, and we do it knowing that we're doing it for Jesus. I said, I believe that in that we experience Jesus as profoundly as those wise men did, as those magi did. I said, I believe that our encounter in those times, and so I was kind of reflecting on some of my experiences and experiences of our family and times when we have had the opportunity to say, we're going to do that. We're going to go as far as we need to go, take as much time as we need to take. We're going to give the very best of what we got. We're going to do it with joy, and we're going to do it with honor, and we're going to do it for Jesus. And in the midst of that when we've done that and we've given to those who are in need, who are hurting, who are lonely, who are hungry or thirsty and needing clothes or need to be welcomed in, when we've done it, we have experienced God in the most profound and powerful way. So I said, Sarah, do you think it's an overstatement for me to say that you would experience Jesus as powerfully as the wise men did? And she said, oh my goodness, no, not at all. She said, that's not an overstatement. And I said, so would you say that was like the best experience that you've ever had in a Christmas experience? She said, absolutely. But she was saying, yes, we encountered Jesus in that moment in a way that I believe was as profound as the experience that those magi had. And now as the Magi are making their way back to where they had come from, and they're telling the story, can you believe it? Did you see? I'm saying, did you see what happened when we were there in the home and we got to see Him and we were there in His presence? Don't you know that you're going to have those stories as you share with people you love, as you reach out, as again, you go as far as you need to go. You take as much time as you need to take. You give the best of what you've got to give, and you do it with joy, and you do it with reverence for Jesus, and you do it in such a way that is in humility and honor to Him. When you do that toward others, and you give to those who are considered in the world to be the least, it's in that moment that Jesus just shows up. And you encounter the Son of the living God in the most powerful and profound way. I believe with all my heart that the Wiseman family traveling back from Dominican Republic had as much joy and as much awe and as much experience of His presence and reflecting back on that experience as the Magi did when they were traveling back to where they had come from in the East. I know that every time I've been there, And whether it was traveling to a home just down the street in my neighborhood, or it was traveling to Uganda or Rwanda, wherever it is that we've ever gone, and we've said, wherever God's called us to go, we'll go as far as He calls us to go. We'll take as much time as it calls us to take. We will do whatever He has called us to do, and we'll give the best of what we got, and we're going to do it with such joy, and we're going to do it with such humility and reverence and honor for Him. Every time, the impact has been so enormous in my heart, in my life, in the lives of those that we've had that experience with, that they're experiences we will never forget. We will never forget. And so as much as if those wise, those magi or those wise men had the opportunity to literally hold on, just put their arms around Jesus, I can remember just putting my arms around a little child in Uganda and just remember just melting in the power of that moment as Jesus was so profoundly present in that moment. And that's just the tip of the iceberg, just countless experiences throughout. I can remember the same kinds of experiences right here in Horry County. I can remember that kind of experience with elderly folks and with babies and children. I can remember that kind of experience with all kinds of folks, with all kinds of needs in all kinds of places. And God's saying to you right now, you can have an experience as profound as the Magi. But the question is now that you know where you can go, to give that gift to Him. Now that you know, if you find the least, if you find somebody hungry or thirsty, needing clothes, a stranger, if you find someone sick or in prison, if you will go as far as you need to go, if you'll take as much time as you need to take, if you'll give the best of what you got, and you'll do it with joy and reverence for our Lord and humility, if you'll do that, then you will be able to present Him with those gifts. How far are you willing to go? How much time are you willing to take? How much are you willing to give? And how will you give it? Will you be overjoyed with the thought that, man, God has told me how I can do this and how I can experience Him in that way? And will you do it with humility and reverence for our Lord and with love for Him? Because if you will, I promise you're going to walk away from that experience with an experience as powerful or maybe even more powerful than the one of those magi who presented those gifts of gold and frankincense and myrrh to Jesus when He was a toddler in Bethlehem. God bless you as you go into your Discovery Bible study, but here's where you're going to do it. You're going to do it in the book of Matthew, chapter 25, verses 31 through 46. We've heard the story as Casey read it of the Magi. Now you're going to look at your opportunity as you look into Matthew 25, 31 through 46. God bless you as you discover how you can encounter Jesus this Christmas.